Okay, I think we're live. So welcome everybody to the panel discussion. I'm here with Ferdi and Javed, and we're going to talk about automation and AI in advertising. Let's just start with a round of introductions. And who wants to go first? I know Ferdi.
Hi everyone, my name is Ferdi. I'm coming from Indonesia right now. You guys can see here in my background it's totally pitch black because it's night here. So I'm working for Gojek, super app company in Indonesia. It's a decacorn company, and right now we are operating for ride hailing and super app industry. I'm taking care of the growth, marketing, and paid media acquisition, and also intelligence for our merchant arm for Gojek. Thank you.
Right, so I'll go next. Thanks very much there. So my name Javed. I am based in London. My background originally is very corporate. I'm a qualified actuary, so mathematician and statistician by background. Worked for some of the largest organizations like GlaxoSmithKline, Marks and Spencer's, HSBC. Before coming into the startup and SME world, where I've been now for about 5 to 10 years, I've got 2 or 3 of my own businesses. So I've got a consulting, I've got a property investment platform, This Properties, and I've got a technology company called Seabytes, which helps kind of develop software enterprise solutions as well as kind of offering digital marketing solutions. So would be very interested to explore kind of automation and advertising with the panel today.
Thank you. So, hi, I'm Roman. I'm based in Slovakia, Central Eastern Europe. I've worked with data for 10 years. I'm a data scientist at heart, and for the past 5 years, I've been working in marketing, data science. I've been first working on automating marketing for Hollywood studios, and then crossing into general marketing, and now I work at Verity, right, which is like a reporting platform with some automated insights feature that I'm kind of trying to help build out. So that would be my background. And let's get to it. So, guys, first question that I would have, what is actually AI and automation for you in marketing, right? What does it actually mean, and what is it that we are talking about today?
Ferdi, do you want to go first?
Yep, sure. Thank you. For me, I think automation and AI is something that is pretty much unreplaceable element of my things right now. So right now, we're probably treating both of them in like a holistic way, but still in some part it's actually treated differently. So for automation, it's something that we hold the marketing ops role in my team. And right now we're trying to build an end-to-end journey to how to actually onboard your users. We call our users merchants, and how we can actually nurture them, actually see their offer life cycle and journey with us. And as for AI, is something that we are actually trying to move the role right now. It's not just focusing on like a product side, but also from the marketing side. And right now we're trying to apply it in our advertising stuff, in which we actually try to see how we can actually process all the data of our acquisition from all of our channels right now, and we can actually see how it's actually create a growth levers for a different part of the company itself.
Perfect. So from my angle, there's 2 aspects. So one, I am, like I said, kind of I provide consulting to startups and bigger businesses and FTSE 100 companies, and then I've got my own businesses as well. So both from a client's perspective and my own businesses, what I've seen is that automation has become a lot more accessible, even for kind of the smaller startups, smaller companies, and there's a lot more of kind of email marketing campaigns or paid ad campaigns or different kind of social media platforms, posting on them, kind of like platforms like Hootsuite or Buffer, or we've got our own offering called Vitamate, where kind of we help people automate the entire kind of lead generation process on LinkedIn organically, kind of offered to the startups and SME kind of community. So automation, I think, it has made life a lot easier, and it is more accessible. On the AI side, my experience has been that is still not that accessible to smaller companies. The larger clients that I work with, they've got the resources, they've got the talent, kind of either in-house or through, for example, our company or whatever. They are able to then, kind of use big data or, kind of use data from their marketing activities and then you use AI to kind of either support their automation so that the manual intervention pieces are reduced or improved, and similarly the AI piece, kind of with data analysis and helping with the analytics part to refine their marketing, kind of processes. So that's kind of my experience so far, and how I'm seeing automation and AI within marketing with larger businesses and smaller businesses.
Thank you. So my perspective, it's a challenge, right? Because I think for data scientists, it's easy to read the paper and build a fancy model, but then translating that to something that like a business person can actually use and consume, that's, I think, the biggest challenge of data science in marketing is not the tech, it's basically making it the business value for the customer. And it's also a very interesting challenge, right? So it's about cooperation and finding out what can be, right? So that's, from my perspective, what we should be striving towards. And as I mentioned, in my current role, we are kind of trying to build the solutions for small and medium businesses, right? So the idea is that you don't need to put the needles in the haystack. And I also kind of see sometimes people, fear that AI will take their jobs, right? Which I don't think it's actually true for marketing, right? Because in the end, what I think should happen is a marketing person or marketing analyst shouldn't, spend their Monday delivering the same report to their boss, right? You should automate that, right? And you should focus on the things that are more important for you, like, actually increasing the conversion rate. And it also makes your CV look better because you, instead of saying, hey, I'll deliver the same report on Monday to my boss, you can say I spent that time improving conversion rate by 50%. So I think it's also an opportunity to everybody using these kind of tools as long as they're available to them. So yeah, I would say that's.
Yeah, actually, same thing is happening here. I think last year or last 2 years, I had a discussion with a lot of digital marketeers, and I think they were afraid that in the next like 5 to 10 years, their job will be taken by AIs. I mean, considering how people actually see digital marketing evolves here all across the nations and all across I think all the continents out there. I think right now we can see that I think in the next 5 to 10 years, some role of the executive role will be somewhat very, very tailored to media planning aside from just optimization. So I think in the following years, we can see that the part of marketing optimization, especially for paid media, I think it will be more like AI driven rather than human driven, right? And then, so that's why I think as an early marketer, we have all the privilege to actually be the leading media planner for this, so that in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll have a very secure, I think, position to that, so that we won't be get replaced by AI.
Just to add to that, so I am consulting a startup at the moment. They are essentially trying to use AI and automation in the editorial process. So essentially, kind of from the entire, and there are quite a few platforms that end up doing that, but the end-to-end process, which is driven a little bit more by AI, and it can actually generate usable content with kind of limited amount of input, but then the journey includes the editorial kind of process as well. So that's kind of again consulting on that and kind of developing that. So you're very right that at the moment we are lucky in a way that we've seen kind of the internet evolve, kind of digital marketing, learn from digital marketing, and then kind of input into where it is going to evolve to. And I think with AI, that piece would always remain. That whilst yes, digital marketing, like a lot of in other industries, so being a qualified actuary, I've seen that within that industry as well, that AI and computers and analytics and automation end up taking over certain parts, but then you still need kind of that higher level of human input or intellect, or being able to kind of interpret that information, communicate that information to decision makers, and so on and so forth. So as long as each person within their role are open to continue to learn and adapt, then I think hopefully we should be okay and move together towards a more slightly kind of efficient and better environment and businesses and so on and so forth, would be my view. But yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Ferdi, you wanted to add something to that, or?
Actually, I think because I want to see the perspective as we can probably, this is the beauty of this discussion right now, because we can share the condition between each of the market itself. So how do you actually see, Javed, how do you actually see, and also Roman here, how do you actually see AI being adapted for SMB segment? Like, what is actually the challenge right now in your own perspective?
Roman, do you want to go first? Or
yeah. I mean, okay. Let me go first since you tagged me. So I would say we're dealing with a similar challenge lately. So there's marketing modeling that kind of is becoming more prominent because of the that of the third-party cookie and all that. So we've been looking for adapting these models for like the small and medium business. And we've been speaking to people that have been building these models for companies that paid several millions per year for them, right? And this means that you get a lot of a lot of options to customize it. You can kind of very much build a very, very custom solution, right? So when we kind of then go down to the small and medium businesses, the challenge is kind of making it work for something that's very much more standardized, right? So let's make it work or Shopify data or Amazon Marketplace data, in a way where kind of it provides the same value, and also maybe take away a bit of the customization to the point where it still provides value, right? So it's kind of simplifying these tools so they're available, right? So that you don't have to have terabytes of data for them to work, but at the same time, so that they can scale and we can just add a new client without any problems, and kind of it's very easy to onboard, let's say, 100 new clients to these models, as opposed to building a custom solution for a very big company that costs you a lot of money, but also you have to do a lot of custom work. So I think that's part of the challenge there.
I think I would agree there. And the way I see it is that you can't always get everything, right? So if you have a lot of resources, you've got, kind of budgets, you've got, kind of people that are working for your business, your particular industry, your particular product offering end to end, kind of developing a solution, which includes the automation, the AI piece, kind of what are the steps within your funnel or your customer journey, and tweaking everything to be your brand specific. You'll get obviously the best of the world, and you'll be at the forefront of innovation, and you will be the company that would be utilizing, kind of automation and AI from a marketing perspective, and kind of having a positive impact on your bottom line, the most and the best, kind of thing. But when you start talking about, kind of startups and SMEs and the companies that kind of are at the idea stage, perhaps, kind of, some of them are on a shoestring budget, kind of, they have used free resources, free everything, kind of, you've got free, kind of, I don't know, like task management platform, ClickUp, maybe free Gmail accounts or whatever, free, kind of, and so on and so forth. And then you've got, kind of, obviously the more revenue generating businesses, which are micro businesses through to, kind of SMEs and SMBs. They obviously have, kind of more revenue and more access, more ability to, kind of afford some of these services. But this entire bunch, the way I see it is, because they do not have that level of resources and access and so on and so forth, like with any new technology and adoption and so on and so forth, it would take years for me to think, for them to get an access to the level of that they can extract the same value, compared to the example that I gave earlier of a larger company. It would take years, I think. So at the moment, the challenge that I see is that, and there are, kind of tools and things that being built. One, that they are sufficient value generating, but effectively cost accessible, kind of, they are affordable for smaller companies. And it adds enough value at a point where the learning, kind of the education piece, the learning by their team, the amount of people that the resources that would be required, you could have in a larger company, kind of 10 different people focusing on each different step. But in a smaller company, you'll have maybe one digital marketing manager or one, kind of head, and that's it. That's your entire digital marketing team. So then for that solution, or a set of solutions to be cost effective, be able to be driven by limited education, and by that one or two people, and kind of offer the solution that works. That, I think, for me, is the challenge to achieve, kind of that balance between those buckets, essentially.
Yep, pretty much the same case for Indonesia. I think for Indonesia, right now, the biggest component of our CAC right now in terms of merchant acquisition would be not the cost to actually get them to install or download our application, but it's actually to onboard them to start using our product for the first time. So if you see the marketing funnel itself, the biggest drop off right now is actually within how they can actually start using the app itself, with having a minimum discussion or probably minimum touch point with our salesperson right now. Because every time we start like a B2B based product in Indonesia, they always started with a very offline driven acquisition. So we have like a sales team being deployed, and then they acquire the merchants or the customer one by one, and then they have to onboard it manually. And right now we're trying to shift that for all of our products right now. For B2B, we have around 15 products right now, including the sub verticals for Gojek right now. And right now, the biggest challenge right now is actually onboarding them to actually start using the product in an efficient way. And the way I'm saying it is that how actually the automation AI here would be how we can actually score the level of the absorption of our product knowledge, and also combine with how like their location or demographic and so on, and also some data point that we can actually capture out there, and we can create a data model so that we know that okay, for this particular type of merchants or users, you want to engage them in a particular type of method. As of now, we have started with onboarding a very AI tools for our WhatsApp module inside our app. And also we want to encourage more and more merchant to start using our help center, because right now you cannot spoon fed them one by one. You have to like tell them, okay, this is the entire module. Like you have to read from this and they hand it, but you want to make them do it themselves and as a mandatory part of your product right now. So that's what we are trying to right now. So I think probably if you see here right now, because I want to connect with our initial discussion right now about advertising. Right now, we're trying to actually capture the data from the advertising itself. So how we can actually, the moment we capture the audience itself, the moment we actually capture the data points, we can actually see how the actual marketing funnel actually progresses from all the leads that we capture. So that's probably the biggest thing that I think most company are striving very hard to actually do it, especially for those in the B2B field.
I would completely agree there. I mean, a couple of just, kind of experiences from my end on that. So, and I think that's a little bit more speaking towards the challenge of the current, kind of environment we're in for SMBs, or, kind of whether you're targeting B2B or B2C. So a lot of the clients that I've seen is, one, they're struggling with, kind of the digital marketing piece. There are a lot of people out there claiming to be digital marketing experts, but the problem is that they figured out maybe one small chunk of, kind of digital marketing.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of, kind of Facebook ads, or maybe, kind of how to do SEO or content marketing, or maybe, kind of, and then within SEO, that's an entire field, kind of how do you do on-site and off-site and backlinks, and yeah, and we can talk about, kind of all of that for hours and hours, each one of these, content marketing, and then organic, kind of social media marketing, how to, kind of do all of that. And my own experience has been, when I came, so like I said, I'm a mathematician and statistician, kind of originally management consultant for larger organizations. When I came into, kind of my own businesses, I made very expensive learning mistakes, hired, kind of experts, so-called experts, and I relied on them. When we would get thousands and millions of impressions of ads, or, whatever we are doing, and spent literally hundreds of thousands of pounds, the outcome of that was literally conversion rates. You can round that to 0%. The key issue was that the business owner does not understand marketing as much. Kind of what are the key KPIs to, kind of look for. Similarly, the data points that you need on your website, on your email campaigns, on social media, kind of campaigns, to, kind of come together in one place. And more and more research is showing that you need multiple touch points for the same client, kind of up to 8 touch points before they might become a converted customer. But then there's additional research that if you end up having those touch points across different type of platforms, that number of touch points reduces and the chances of conversion increases. So again, it goes back to, kind of that point that the multiple data points to bring it all together and then be able to analyze that. As a small company, I think that is one of the biggest challenges. And then the other piece of that challenge is that automation has made some of that easier. A lot of people still do not understand, kind of tag managers, understand, kind of the different type of pixels or codes or tracking codes, etc., that they could put on their websites. And then, kind of Google Analytics and other free tools again, hours and hours of discussion, right? And I've taught myself that, like, I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So even though from a background mathematician and statistician, I had to train myself to become a digital marketing expert after very poor experiences with the so-called experts. So
Yeah.
the second piece of the issue that I've been facing is that automation has become more accessible, but because people do not have that knowledge, they spend a lot of money on either ads or on, kind of one of these things, email marketing campaign. They don't know how to measure their ROI. Their data is not being collated. The so-called experts, or if they're doing it themselves, a lot of them are now doing it themselves because of automation. So while the access is there, they want quick results without, kind of educating themselves. And I think that is one
Exactly.
of the
Yeah.
other biggest challenges that I'm seeing within automation, that clients, if one takeaway, use automation, it really helps. But without the knowledge or without the expertise, it will, only burn your money and time, more importantly, time. So those are the two biggest challenges that I'm seeing at the moment, currently.
That's good input. I mean, the way I was thinking about this, and what I wanted to point out is also, when you talk about AI, right? I think very often it happens that you get ahead of yourself as an organization, and you kind of hire a team of data scientists before you can even answer basic questions, right? And nobody cares about, predicting conversion on a website. If you can't really you don't know how many visitors you have, or they don't know what your CPM is, or your CPM benchmark is, right? So in order to kind of build to the point where you can trust your AI and your automation, you kind of have to build the basic reporting, understand what's going on, and there is lots of value to be derived from that, right? So that I think is also not to be forgotten, because like also in data science we have this saying that says garbage in, garbage out, right? Because if you don't have basic data about your business, AI is not going to help you, right? So I would also say, there are some good blogs that maybe I could share later, but like about how to build analytics in a company, without getting too ahead of yourself, right? And without, hiring a team of 5 data scientists that's going to cost you, a fortune from the beginning, because I think that's also very important. And I've seen companies do that because, simply of the hype and the peer pressure saying you have to do AI, you have to do data science, right? Whereas, it's not always that clear cut, right? And that kind of also brings you to the question of, buying versus building, right? Because you don't always have to build everything. And I feel in tech, right, once you hire your engineering team and a few data scientists, there's like this I won't say disease, but like a syndrome of tech people where, something that's not built by you is, complete shit, right? So that's something that you also combat, right? Because in the end, you as marketer don't care if it was built by your team or by somebody else's team, as as it works. But there's like this pride among tech people where it has to be built by us. So sometimes, as soon as you get like a tech person on your call, it might be that they actually are thinking, how will I build this myself, without buying the tool. So I think that's also an interesting aspect. And as Javed, you said, and also for the, basically the domain knowledge is the most important thing, right? Because that's where the tech and the business meet, right? So we kind of have to understand how to put this together. And if the tech people don't understand the domain, then most likely it's going to result in something that nobody is going to use or will want to use, right? And so yeah, I agree completely with needing to have a
Yeah.
domain knowledge. Without that, you don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
Very,
Before
very
joining,
true. Very
before
true.
yeah. So even before joining tech, I thought what was that the only tech that I know that is my TV remote, and every time I slap it, it always turns on. So I thought that it's the same logic could be applied to any tech people working with me. So and then turns out it was like quite different, because I have to understand the back end of it, and then it was totally different. But yeah. Actually, regarding Javed point here, I actually experiment with my company right now. So we create a lot of theme for our SMBs segment. So we create like a training for Facebook ads, Google ads, and so on and so on. So we try to actually connect them with the expert in the field. And let's watch one time in which we try to educate our SMBs client. And by SMBs in Indonesia, it terms it's actually quite different from than in Europe. So the average SMB here is actually ranging from monthly revenue of 500 USD up until like 6,000 USD per month. Like that's the super, like that's the big range. That's probably relatively small to compare to outside of Indonesia, I think. and we try to introduce them to the concept of return on advertising spend, which I think is quite popular for us in advertising industry, and they don't actually absorb it that much. But when there's another person, actually I don't know is this person a poser or not, but they started to have this kind of a workshop, and by telling everyone that I get my first, let's say, a 5 million USD from X investment per day. And I think that's happening all over the places, right? Regardless of where you are right now. I mean, there will be always those people who are attracted to this kind of stuff. But when you get in, I think I can say here firmly that they are not actually delivering what they're actually promising. So
Selling.
I think the moment we actually scale up our advertising and our, I mean, automation and stuff, we know that this kind of things, it doesn't actually resonate with us, right? Yeah.
Very, very true. One thing, just touching on the ROI piece. So this is again, while my journey of, kind of from a finance background, I've been a CFO of a couple of startups, kind of multi-million-dollar companies, crypto, fintech based companies. So one company that I was leading, I helped convert it from a $5 million company to a $100 million company in 1 year. So as the CFO, obviously with the team and so on and so forth.
Awesome.
So ROI, return on investment. As a finance, guy originally, you obviously look at your overall cost and it's against your profitability, right? You would look at the return, which is your profit, against your total cost. But when I initially worked with, kind of the so-called marketing experts, I remember, I mean, the concept of ROI that they were trying to explain to me didn't make sense to me. So so I'll give you an example of my property investment platform. So there you've got a asset that you're selling £1 million, which is a small, London property, right? Through our fund. So a client comes, buys the £1 million property. The business generates, kind of in that particular, kind of proposition, maybe 5%, 2%, transaction fee, commission, whatever the structure is, that's deal specific. So if it's 2% of £1 million, that is £2,000, if my math is correct right now. So £2,000, and the person's telling me that, okay, to get in £1 million, you need to spend about 30% of the £1 million. And I'm like, wait, 30% of that is like, that's crazy. Like, so I'm spending £300,000 to get the £1 million in to make a profit of £2,000. Yeah. So some of these, again, I think it's a caution or word of warning of the so-called, I have become a millionaire, kind of immediately in a month or whatever, or I'm a digital marketing expert. Before hiring anybody, kind of have enough information so that you can test that person whether they are, kind of what they claim to be. Get real life studies, kind of case studies, talk to customers. And the other thing I think to add to that is, and a big challenge, people out there, everything can be, kind of bought these days, all kinds of reviews. I wouldn't want to name platforms, but almost on every platform, reviews, etc., could be purchased. Kind of fake testimonials, etc., could be created. So that's why that social proof, you need to dig more into that. And, kind of, and I think for me, the easiest way has been initially, kind of, I tried, kind of, okay, great. What they're selling is great. Okay, I went with them. Lost money and time. Then, okay, no, this didn't work. Second step, okay, I need to, kind of now look at their previous clients. Talk to their previous clients. Again, poor experiences. I wonder if they were actual clients or not, right? So the only way I have, kind of figured that piece out is having enough domain expertise to be able to, not an expert, but enough knowledge to be able to understand whether this particular person that I'm going with, whether that's a data scientist, whether that's, kind of digital marketer, SEO expert, whatever, he is going to be able to deliver. And I think the second thing to that is, if a person as a marketer promises you X% conversion rate, first rank on the first page of Google with XYZ keywords, don't believe it, because people who know marketing, they will start focusing on your conversion rates or your bottom line. and they know that is a journey, that has to be taken together, that could be a hit and a miss, and it takes time to kind of get there. So
yeah, I
Okay.
totally agree.
So let's return back to the AI and automation, right? And my question then is, I guess something similar can happen with a tool, right? So let's say you buy a tool for AI and automation, and how do you know the tool is actually working? How do you verify it, right? If you're the data scientist, right? Maybe your reporting is still lacking, right? So like, how do you know that the tool that you are using is based on AI and automation? We may mean that it's also kind of maybe a bit more of a black box. How do you know that it's actually useful to you, right? How do you evaluate these tools?
that's a great question. Freddie, happy to go first, or happy for you to go first?
Yeah. I think if we evaluate, I think at the end of the day, like I told, I think everyone here before, come back to the same point of return on advertising spend, right? So if I invest this much, then how will I get in return? And if I want to scale up, like how big is it's actually affecting my ROAS factor for this? And I think it's always boiled down to that, especially in the field of advertising. And as of now, I think what we are trying to implement is that the AI is not only in the targeting itself, because I'm not trying to actually push everything toward advertising, but also after they actually see the ads itself, and how will they convert, and will they actually be validated as or potential users. So I had a lot of experience in the past in which like a lot of companies actually offering, okay, this is a very AI driven advertising platform, please start using it, and so on and so on. But then when I checked my app tracking dashboard, like the installs were not coming from a very regular source, and when I check on them, so that's why in my previous company we developed method to actually counter this. So we work together with our agency and also third-party app tracking. So we develop a lot of clause and addendum to actually tell every advertiser that every time we invest in them in several amount, we don't want the install to be happening within the 3 seconds or 15 seconds after they click the install, because that's will be very prominent toward this. And then you can only and you can only use AI to actually help you to actually monitor all of the fraud tracking. So I think the moment the AI advertising grows as a demand, we have to actually see, we cannot actually see, right, the back end part of it, unless we actually see the return on advertising spend. So my take on this would be, every time we invest in something, always try to invest more in the way we track the impact of it, so that we can see that is it really right install or not, and so on. Because there's a lot of case, like I talked with a lot of people in my industry, like they were generating a lot of installs and also a lot of visitors. But then if you are not into the vanity metric, you know that you cannot rely on that install number, right? You can only rely on the actual person that is using your product, and that can only be tracked via third-party neutral app.
I think so. One great question, and Freddie completely agrees. So my take on that is that I'll give an example of our tool Bitomate. So that ends up utilizing LinkedIn to automate kind of a lot of the lead generation, and then warming up the lead and converting them into a client, with then human intervention at the end. So with that, it ends up being difficult, obviously, to kind of look at each and every message from the automation, what's happened, kind of how many messages have been sent, what kind of replies have been replied to, how many invites have been sent, how many of them were accepted or not, which of the messages you had sent, how you had constructed the wording, etc., which were accepted, which weren't accepted, and so on and so forth. So for our customers, we provide kind of a simpler dashboard where you end up kind of being able to see those stats kind of from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. So the way I see it is that should apply to every kind of tool or marketing activity that you undertake. To be honest, actually any activity that you undertake. And one other thing that I would like to throw in is that now I see the product offering, the product development team, the marketing team, the sales or conversion team, as kind of they need to be combined, or they need to be at least communicating very effectively with each other, communicating data. So if that happens, and you end up kind of are using any tool, it becomes easier to understand what matters. And I completely agree with Freddie that bottom line, it is your return on your return on investment, return on advertising spend, marketing spend, whatever it is. But in some cases that might be difficult because, there's a long funnel. So then you need to break out the funnel, and you need to, kind of look at each step of the funnel and see, okay, if initially it's the top of the funnel, you're, kind of sending initial, kind of messaging, ads, whatever it is, invite on LinkedIn, to expose your product to the potential client. You need to then see, kind of what kind of messages, how many, the percentage of them, kind of converted, doing A/B testing, and so on and so forth. And obviously that's where, kind of the automation and AI piece comes in, because you can use a bit of AI, simple, kind of models to, kind of get you to answer certain questions, or, highlight certain things within a report, etc., rather than every time analyzing the data. And I'll close this off with, I was running, so my team was running Facebook ads for one of my businesses, a video ad. The amount of information Facebook dashboard provides is very limiting. Because we've got, kind of the data scientists and developers in-house, we extracted the entire data from Facebook, raw data, and then, kind of developed models where essentially we can just keep on chucking in and throwing in new data, and we see the dashboards and the numbers and the metrics that we want to see. And those metrics, again, go back to identifying how much each step of your funnel or journey is working. So I think the way I see it is, whatever tool you're trying to get to, whatever tool you're using, whatever marketing activity you're doing, understand, work backward from your return on investment, break down your entire journey into as small steps as possible that you can, and then start, kind of understanding the KPIs for that. There's a lot of information out there. There are a lot of, good consultants out there that can help with, kind of understanding this, and then start tracking each one, and start then so you kind of build the KPIs backwards from down up, and then start tracking from top down and optimizing from top down. And if the tool is helping you do that and helping you see that information, great. If not, there has to be a better way.
Okay, what do you think about liability of these tools, right? So imagine Facebook has a optimization algorithm. I use them as an example, right? Because they have a lot of data and a lot of science behind what they do. So let's say you find out that the optimizations are wrong, right? Do you think like these tools should, or the companies running these tools should be liable for kind of bad decisions that are automated or based on AI? Or should we just kind of say, okay, as long as you are doing better than a human, it's fine?
I'll take that first, if you don't mind, Ferdi.
Sure, go ahead.
I think in an ideal world, it would be great if especially a large business like Facebook and Google or whatever can be made to be liable, or they take responsibility enough where if their tool isn't working, then at least they take a little bit of the hit. But the way their terms and conditions, legal teams, offering, etc., kind of developed, obviously all the responsibility ends up being on the end user. So you use it, you've got all the power, but in reality that's not the case, because we've got limited visibility about how their algorithms work. It's a black box, kind of how the bidding process works, how all of that works. But we've been given certain, kind of ability to turn the levers, and based on what levers we turn, we can get a good outcome or a bad outcome. And yes, people are seeing good results. Yes, these are the only main options. So unfortunately, the liability ends up being the end users. So I think it would be in a utopian society, yes, something like that would be useful. But in reality, unfortunately, it doesn't happen.
I think for my end, I think one of the biggest liability would be that we have to agree that at some point, some of these metrics like CPC, CPM, or even CPA is not within our domain of control. So I had a lot of experience in which I did some recommendation from Facebook and Google to actually improve my CPM, because I know that for CPM, it's actually based on the audience that you're trying to reach, right? So if you're trying to reach the same audience all over the time, your CPM will actually go very high. And then we try to actually make it broader and so on. So, but the CPM keeps on increasing. But then at some point, in which they told us, I think you have to wait for a while. But again, this is a very fast-moving industry, and people cannot wait. So, at some point, we have to agree that in the end of the day, all of these channels that we try to bid, let it be a biddable one or probably a one that we don't bid that often, is actually there's a lot of things that we cannot control. And I think right now is that we, as a marketeer, we need to communicate if we're working with a client base, or probably working with a internal stakeholder, that there's some point in which we can actually push the CPM or CPC or even other metrics that much, because in the end of the day, there's an AI process behind it, right? I know you cannot tell everyone that it's just the algorithm. Like it's probably one of the ultimate thing that I previously, I think 3 years ago, tell everyone that, okay, why your advertising campaign sucks. I tell them that, I told them if I like in a bad position, I just tell them it's an algorithm that doesn't work. But then it cannot work the same right now, right? So we have to agree that at some point when we reach that mature point, we have to agree that there's some degree of control that we cannot exercise, and we need to improve the other way around of it.
Okay, thank you. And I think that actually brings us to the QA part of the panel. So I don't know if there are any questions.
I'm just looking through the chat as well.
No, I don't really. Okay, so if there are no more questions, let me ask you a question to end. Towards the end, let's speak on a more positive note. So, what's like the best example of AI and automation that you have seen so far, or we have used or built?
So like I mentioned, I've been banging on about that one a little bit more recently. Is the Bitomate. So it essentially ends up, it's a service rather than a tool, because we are not just selling the technology. We want to kind of sell that together, the technology and the expertise, with the ability to gain insights, reporting, and you having certain control over the messaging and your product, because you know your product best. So we're offering that to our kind of clients, where they've got the ability to use LinkedIn, because and primarily B2B, decision makers, etc. Fantastic platform for that, to kind of do an organic outreach. LinkedIn is known to be kind of highest on ad spend and so on and so forth. So it's a very powerful tool from that perspective. Kind of answers all the points that we talked about. And given we've got kind of Steerbyte, the technology company business behind it, we can also offer the combination of different platforms and multiple touch points. So for example, we can combine the LinkedIn piece with your email campaigns, or we can run the email campaigns for you, and we can bring in the paid ads campaign, kind of, and have multiple touch points. And the paid ads, then the analysis is done by our models rather than, your online Facebook models and so on and so forth. So that's an offering that, kind of focused on LinkedIn, but then there's that wider piece that we can bring in everything into, kind of the picture. So I'm very excited about that for our clients and the clients that are using it. We tell them at the outset, you need to have a little bit of time. We need to kind of test and refine and so on and so forth, because marketing is all about that. So excited about that. But again, there are many other tools in the market as well that we tend to use. Like Roman mentioned earlier, that it's not about, whether we built it or not. It's about the value that the tool brings, and we need to focus on that.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing here, but probably from my end will be toward, in the end of the day, it's all about tools, right? But behind the tool all itself, it's not a magic tool that you can actually put your money and then boom, there you get excess amount of budget from it. But you have to build your own data model, because that's when you start seeing the actual performance of your business itself that's being driven by this advertising platform. Because right now, I think most of the company right now, they still have a very basic data model that is pretty much doesn't probably doesn't really calculate that much on each of the interaction between each of the customer journey, and also the media touch point, and how they actually get into our platform right now. Even us in Gojek right now, we're trying to see like how many ebooks that an average user, average lead should actually read before they actually start converting as our paying users. So if we even go that far, and if we're looking at the B2C, it's probably even harder for us to execute. But again, this is something that probably you can go, because that's when you start realizing that you're optimizing your CAC in the long run. Yep, I think almost 50 seconds to go.
50. So yeah, from my perspective, I kind of had the opportunity to work on this very exciting. We actually built optimization for Facebook before Facebook had optimizations for the Hollywood studios, and it was a very cool tool to build and also to learn about the interactions with marketers, where it kind of came in and said, hey, this is something that doesn't really make sense, and then we kind of went back and forth and changed the algorithms. So I would say that was a pretty cool application. And currently, as I mentioned, I'm kind of excited for kind of adapting the market mix modeling to like an ROI advisor module that kind of helps with understanding which channels. Because when I think about the budget optimization, it's kind of pretty low level, right? So whereas kind of the understanding which channels work the best is basically, much more strategic. So I like that view. But yeah, in general, I would, as mentioned, use any tool that works. And yeah, I think with that, we thank you everybody for attending. We hope that it was interesting, listening to us for a long time. If you have any questions, don't feel free to reach out to any of
Bye-bye.
us.